AscuraTales, the first false implication to reasoning. If so to say, I think the first logical fallacy and same, that every disreasoning is a logical fallacy, is often phrased in this discussion and by discussions often to the leading idea where then a logical fallacy is in the sort of arising is if you have to assume that by is the starting of the phrase. If so, you have to assume that by. And this is a logical statement. So why? Well, often reasoning and philosophical implications are in these essays or elaborations of things, thoughts of thingies, and in these deductive written pages is often logical reasoning leads by deduction and so similar by induction to a replication that is without statistical definite argument defined, thus a mention at argument from data. This meaning that being in the assumption of a singular causal argument cannot be phrased in the context of it would have to be assumed that by, because they rely on pure reasoning, meaning that it's an implied separated statement to idea of scenario, meaning philosophical, to scenario by separated difference in causal, meaning they're fusing philosophy with psychology. They're making this idea that the mental is not by philosophy separated to the deductive process of when the philosophical idea reasoned up by either when using logic of pure logic, or that would occur in the process of deduction, which is in both cases by logic then of pure logic, not a philosophical topic from both ideas, meaning they don't have two causal separated arguments in philosophy. The deductive process starts at when deduction is occurring after the base premise is formed for a philosophical statement. So this idea of if so, you have to assume that by, leading up to the idea that for this then basic logical reasoning for all of this discussion is an often difficult to hold up as a basic logical deductive and deducted reasoning. So I got this idea by thinking about ENEMEYSIDE, that which is the unovercomable boundary that is death, from the Fallout Doctrine. And these thingies, these people, or often likes to be assumed as one of the obstacles that is that is the unovercomable boundaries, in the sense of what, like that which was described, like in the song from Jim Joseph, this battle cry song there. He describes the horizon as an unovercomable idea and metaphor for boundary, and I think this is very actually accurate for the Egyptian discussion, where Ra sets at the horizon and the dawn sets in with the traveling of Ra to the underworld, where he guides the soul away from this unovercomable boundary, which was often most likely depicted as some idea of desert that people cannot really cross. So this is a rather accurate description, and that there is this wall of ENEMEYSIDE lurking at the horizon, and that is the horizon by this deserted land and so forth, or the desert itself, and that my knowledge is better than yours is wrong formulated at, meaning it would need to be assumed that for in general truth of a statement only, that for the discussion of and the discourse of wisdom and such, the base premise for rules of discussion is for every part, or party better said, my knowledge is better than yours. Question is your knowledge better to me, must be the guiding principle for such and such. Is an outrageous, philosophical, wrong, reasoned up statement, because it's doing this mistake. It's confusing the mental, the psychology of a human being with the philosophical causal effect that would only be reasoned up by the deduction and the formulation of the argument, not by that it has two same causal ideas in that implication of deduction or induction, meaning data, or singular defined value at data. And for it hence base premise to it being possible is also my knowledge is sufficient. It's equally true. All other idea to knowledge is to knowledge of and not of knowledge. It's just a different formulation. So of the same argument. And by this idea, you most likely can cancel out every author who somehow wrote this, because it's an outrageous statement. They might have truth with what they said and what they wrote, but the outrage is making a lyrical and deductive mistake that is somehow must have been in their comprehension